The woman at the bakery whispered it first. I was ordering a croissant, and Ethan was standing behind me, his hand resting casually on the small of my back. I heard it, distinctly. Is that her son? And then the friend's reply. No. Look at the way he's looking at her. That's her boy toy. They didn't think I could hear them. Or maybe they didn't care. I am 45 years old. I have a PhD in comparative literature. I have tenure. I have a 401k and a collection of serums for the fine lines around my eyes that cost more than my first car. Ethan is 23. He owns 3 pairs of sneakers, has just started his career, and has skin that looks like it's never seen a sleepless night. To the world, we are a walking midlife crisis, a cliché, a predator, and prey. But the scandal isn't just the math. It's the history. 4 years ago, he sat in the 3rd row of my modern American fiction seminar. He was the student with the messy hair and the brilliant essays. I was Professor Sterling. I graded his papers. I signed his attendance sheet. We broke every rule in the unwritten handbook of society. But as I stand here today, looking at this engagement ring that sparkles under the judgmental lights of the grocery store, I need to tell you the truth. I didn't steal his youth. He was the one who woke me up from the dead. This is the story of how I stopped being a professor and started being a woman, and why I don't give a damn what the lady at the bakery thinks anymore. Let's go back. 4 years ago. I was 41 then. I was married to a man named Mark, a marriage that had been slowly dying of boredom for a decade. Mark was a good man, but we were roommates who shared a tax return. There was no passion. There was only the routine. Coffee, work, dinner, TV, sleep. I poured everything into my job. I was the intimidating professor, the one students were warned about. Dr. Sterling is brilliant, they'd say, but she doesn't give A's easily. Then came the fall semester. Ethan walked into my classroom on a Tuesday. He was 19 then, just a kid. I didn't look at him twice. Why would I? To me, 19-year-olds were unformed clay. They were loud, they were usually hungover, and they didn't understand Hemingway. But Ethan was different. He sat in the 3rd row. He didn't check his phone. He stared at me with an intensity that made me check if I had spinach in my teeth. When he raised his hand, he didn't ask, "Is this on the final?" He asked, "Do you think Gatsby loved Daisy, or did he just love the idea of time travel, the idea of fixing the past?" I stopped writing on the chalkboard. I turned around. "That," I said, adjusting my glasses, "is the most intelligent question anyone has asked in this room in 5 years. What is your name?" "Ethan," he said. That was it. There was no romance. Please believe me. I am a professional. I was a married woman in her 40s. He was a teenager. The thought of him in that way was not just illegal. It was impossible. It didn't even cross my mind. He came to office hours. We talked about books. He told me he wanted to be a writer. I critiqued his drafts. I was harsh. I pushed him. "You're talented, Ethan," I told him once, handing back a paper covered in red ink. "But you're hiding behind big words. Write what scares you." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. "What scares you, Professor?" The question caught me off guard. "Mediocrity?" I lied. The truth was loneliness, irrelevance, waking up at 50 and realizing I never actually lived. He graduated. He shook my hand at commencement. "Thank you, Dr. Sterling," he said. "Good luck, Ethan," I said. And that was it. He walked off the stage and out of my life. Or so I thought. Fast forward 3 years. My life had imploded. Mark left. He found someone else. Someone younger, simpler, someone who didn't correct his grammar. The divorce was quiet and devastating. I kept the house. I kept the tenure. I kept the cats. At 44, I felt like I had become the invisible woman. You know the feeling, ladies? You walk into a bar, and the bartender looks right past you to the 25-year-old girl in the crop top. You go to a party, and you're seated at the kids' table or the elders' table. There is no middle ground. I stopped wearing makeup. I started wearing shapeless cardigans. I told myself, "This is it, Jennifer. You had your turn. Now you just fade." It was a rainy Tuesday in November. I was in the city for a literary festival. I almost didn't go. I wanted to stay home, drink Pinot Grigio, and watch a documentary about serial killers. but my friend Sarah dragged me out. "You need culture," she said. "You need to get out of that house that smells like sad memories." We went to a small indie bookstore in Brooklyn. There was a reading happening, a debut author. The place was packed. I stood in the back, shaking my umbrella, feeling damp and old. "Who is this guy?" I asked Sarah. "Some wunderkind," she whispered. 20-something. His book is blowing up. It's called The Architecture of Longing. The author stepped up to the podium. He was taller than I remembered. His shoulders were broader. He had a scruff of a beard now. He was wearing a fitted charcoal coat that made him look like a brooding poet. It was Ethan. My breath actually hitched. He wasn't the kid in the hoodie anymore. He was a man. He began to read. His voice had dropped an octave. It was rich, resonant. He read a passage about a woman who lived in a glass house, watching the world go by, afraid to throw a stone. It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking. And it sounded familiar. "This book," he said, closing the cover, looking out at the crowd, "is dedicated to the person who told me to write what scares me. I haven't seen her in 3 years, but she's the reason I'm standing here." My heart started hammering a rhythm against my ribs that I hadn't felt in a decade. "Don't be narcissistic, Jennifer," I told myself. "He's talking about his mom. Or a girlfriend." The reading ended. The crowd swarmed him. "Let's go," I said to Sarah. "I need air." I turned to leave. "Jennifer?" The voice cut through the noise. I froze. I turned back. Ethan was standing by the signing table, ignoring a line of eager young women. He was looking straight at me. His eyes were wide. "Dr. Sterling?" he corrected himself. I forced a smile. I walked over, clutching my purse like a shield. "Hello, Ethan. It's been a long time." "You came," he said. He looked stunned. "I happened to be in the neighborhood," I lied. "Congratulations. The reading was adequate." He laughed, that same laugh, but deeper. "High praise from the Iron Lady," he grinned. He looked at the line of people waiting for him. Then he looked at me. "Don't leave," he said. It was an order, not a request. "Please, I'll be done in 20 minutes. Let me buy you a drink to say thank you." "I have to get back." "Jennifer," he said. He dropped the title. "Please." I looked at Sarah. She gave me a shove. "I'll wait," I said. He took me to a jazz bar around the corner. We sat in a velvet booth. I felt ridiculous. I was 44. I was wearing sensible boots and a scarf. He was 23, the hot new author, buzzing with adrenaline. "So," he said, swirling his whiskey, "how is the university? Are you still terrifying freshmen?" "I try my best," I said, sipping my wine. "How is fame? Are you enjoying the adulation?" "It's loud," he said. "I mostly just want to write." We talked, and for the first 20 minutes, I kept the professor armor on. I asked about his publisher. I asked about his word count, but Ethan kept chipping away at it. "Stop," he said suddenly. "Stop what?" "Stop interviewing me. Talk to me." "How are you?" "Not Professor Sterling. You." I looked at him. The amber light caught his eyes. "I'm divorced," I blurted out. He didn't flinch. "I'm sorry," or "Congratulations," depending on the guy. I laughed. A real, sudden laugh. "Congratulations is probably the right word." "You look different," he said softly. "I look older," I said bitterly. "You can say it." "No," he shook his head. "You look softer. In the classroom, you were always so armored up. Blazers, tight buns. Tonight, your hair is down." He reached out. His hand hovered near my face, then retreated. "You look beautiful." The air left the room. My brain screamed danger, alert. "He is your student. He is a child." But my body? My body woke up. My skin prickled. "Ethan," I warned. "Don't flirt with your old teacher. It's a cliché." "I'm not flirting with my teacher," he said intense. "I'm flirting with a woman named Jennifer who happens to be the smartest person I know, and I'm not a student anymore. I'm 23. I pay taxes. I published a book. I know what I want." "And what do you want?" I challenged him, thinking he'd say success or another drink. He leaned across the table. "I want to know if you ever think about the fact that we aren't in a classroom anymore." I should have left. I should have thrown money on the table and run back to the safety of my lonely house, but I didn't. I think about it I whispered. He smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. Good. Then let's get out of here. We walked. We walked for hours. We walked across the Brooklyn Bridge. It was freezing, but I didn't feel the cold. He gave me his coat. It smelled like cedar and old paper. I put it on, and I felt like I was wearing a scandal. I'm 44, Ethan, I said, trying to inject reality into the fantasy. I have stretch marks. I have a mortgage. I listen to NPR. You want to go clubbing? You want to... I hate clubs, he interrupted. And I listen to podcasts about history. Stop trying to disqualify yourself. It's not disqualifying, I argued. It's math. When I was your age, you were in diapers. When you are my age, I'll be nearly 70. He stopped walking. He turned to me, framing my face with his hands. His hands were warm. Jennifer, he said, look at me. Do you feel like you're 70 right now? No, I breathed. Do you feel like my professor right now? No. Then stop counting. Just be here. He leaned in. This was the moment, the line in the sand. If I kissed him, there was no going back. I would be the cougar. I would be the subject of gossip. I would risk my reputation. But looking at his lips, I realized I was tired of protecting a reputation that only kept me warm at night with accolades. I wanted fire. I closed my eyes, and I let him kiss me. It wasn't a tentative, shy kiss. It was a collision. It was hunger. It was 3 years of repressed admiration, exploding into something physical. He kissed me like he was writing a tragedy and a comedy all at once. He kissed me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. And for the first time in 20 years, I didn't think about my grocery list. I didn't think about my tenure review. I just felt. We pulled apart, breathless. Passers-by were staring. Wow, he whispered, resting his forehead against mine. We are in so much trouble, I said, trembling. The best kind, he grinned. But I didn't know then just how much trouble it would be. I didn't know that the kiss was the easy part. The hard part was the morning after. The hard part was facing the world, and the hardest part was facing myself. They say the truth comes out in the dark, but I disagree. The truth comes out at 7 a.m., when the sun hits your face without a filter. I woke up in his hotel room. The night before had been a blur of passion and poetry. But the morning was a panic attack. I looked at Ethan asleep on the pillow. His skin was smooth, unblemished. He breathed with the deep, untroubled rhythm of someone who hasn't spent 20 years worrying about cholesterol or mortgage rates. I caught my reflection in the hotel mirror across the room. My hair was a disaster. My mascara was smudged, and in the harsh daylight, I didn't see a lover. I saw a matron. I saw a woman who was old enough to be his, well, let's not say mother. Let's say his very cool, very inappropriate aunt. What have you done, Jennifer? The voice in my head screamed. He's 23. He still thinks 2 a.m. is a reasonable time to start a movie. You have a chiropractor on speed dial. I started to dress, fast. I needed to escape before he woke up and realized he had slept with the history of literature, not a girlfriend. I was pulling on my boot when I felt a hand on my ankle. Leaving without a goodbye? His voice rasped. Morning voice. Sexy, deep, groggy. I froze. I have a department meeting, I lied. It was Sunday. He sat up, the sheet falling to his waist. He didn't cover up. He had no shame, no insecurities. Jennifer, he said, rubbing his eyes, stop running. I'm not running, I said, hopping on one foot to get my other boot on. I'm being realistic. Last night was wonderful, but it was a mistake, a lovely, reckless mistake. He got out of bed. He walked over to me, completely unselfconscious, and put his hands on my shoulders. Why was it a mistake? Because, I gestured between us. Look at us, Ethan. You are the start of the book. I am the epilogue. You're the climax, he grinned. Don't be gross, I snapped, fighting a smile. I'm serious, he said, his face sobering. I don't care about the calendar. I care about the chemistry. Don't you feel it? I did. God, I did. But feeling it and living it are 2 different things. I can't do this, I whispered. People will talk, my colleagues, your fans, they'll eat us alive. Let them starve, he said, and he kissed me. and just like that, I missed my imaginary department meeting. We dated for 3 months in secret. It was a bubble of bliss. But bubbles pop. I decided to rip the Band-Aid off. I invited him to a dinner party with my colleagues. The intelligentsia. Just be yourself, I told him in the car. But maybe don't mention that you play video games. I play narrative-driven RPGs, he corrected. It's interactive storytelling. Just drink the wine, I sighed. The dinner was a disaster of subtle microaggressions. My department head, Walter, a man who wears bow ties unironically, looked at Ethan over his spectacles. So, young man, Walter said, Jennifer tells us you were a student of hers. How quaint. I was. Ethan smiled, polite. She was the best professor I ever had. I bet. Walter chuckled darkly. And now you write? Fiction, I hear. Young adult stuff? Literary fiction. Ethan corrected, his jaw tightening. Then came Sarah, my best friend, the traitor. She cornered me in the kitchen while I was plating the tiramisu. Jen, she hissed. He's adorable, really. But what are you doing? He's going to leave you. Excuse me? I slammed the spoon down. He's 23, Sarah said, dropping her voice. Right now, you're the Mrs. Robinson fantasy. You're sophisticated, you're experienced. But in 5 years, you'll be 50. He'll be 28. He's going to want kids. He's going to want someone to go hiking the Andes with. You have bad knees. I do not have bad knees, I protested. I did have bad knees. Jen, I'm trying to protect you. He's a tourist in your life. Don't let him wreck the furniture before he checks out. I looked out into the dining room. Ethan was laughing at something Walter said. He looked vibrant. He looked full of future. And suddenly, I felt like a vampire feeding on his time. Sarah was right. I was stealing his youth. The tiramisu tasted like ash. I broke his heart 2 weeks later. I convinced myself it was the noble thing to do, the mature thing. We were sitting on a bench near the campus pond. The water was frozen over. I can't do this anymore, I said. Why? He asked. Did I do something? Is it the age thing again? It's not just the age, Ethan. It's the trajectory. You need to be with someone who is discovering the world for the first time, not someone who has already seen it and is tired of the tour. I don't want a tour guide, he said, his voice rising. I want a partner. You think that now, I said, using my professor voice to hide the tremble. But you won't in 10 years. You'll resent me. You'll look at me and see an anchor. He stood up. He paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair. You are so arrogant, he spat. Arrogant? I was shocked. Yes, you think you know my mind better than I do. You think because you've lived longer you know what I feel. That's not wisdom, Jennifer. That's fear wrapped in a blazer. I am setting you free, I cried. I didn't ask to be freed, he shouted. A few students walking by stopped to stare. I chose you, but you're too cowardly to choose me back. He looked at me one last time. His eyes were red. Fine. If you want to be alone with your tenure and your dignity, go ahead, but don't pretend you're doing it for me. He walked away. I watched him go. I waited for the relief. I waited to feel like the adult who had made the responsible choice. I just felt cold. 3 months passed. I was miserable. I dated a 50-year-old actuary named Greg. Greg liked silence and oatmeal. Greg was appropriate. Greg made me want to scream into a pillow. I hadn't heard from Ethan. I checked his Instagram, from a burner account, obviously. He was on a book tour, Paris, London, Rome. See? I told myself. He's living his life. He forgot about the old professor. Then, the package arrived. It was a plain manila envelope, no return address. Inside was a manuscript, unbound, rough draft. The title was The Theory of Relativity. I sat at my desk, pushed aside my grading, and started reading. It wasn't a thriller. It wasn't sci-fi. It was a romance. It was about a man who falls in love with a woman who lives in a different time zone. Not geographically, but chronologically. It described the way she drank her tea, 2 hands on the mug. It described the way she adjusted her glasses when she was nervous. It described the way she looked in the morning light. Like a masterpiece that the sun was finally allowed to touch. I read the whole thing in one sitting. On the last page, there was no the end. There was just a typed note. I can change the ending, but I need the main character to show up. Book signing. Tonight, the campus bookstore, 7 p.m. I looked at the clock. It was 6:45 p.m. I didn't think. I didn't check my reflection. I grabbed my coat and I ran. I ran like I was 23. I burst into the bookstore. I was panting. I was sweating. I looked deranged. The crowd turned. Ethan looked up. He dropped his pen. He stood up slowly. The crowd parted. "You read it," he said across the room. "It needs editing," I said, gasping for air. "Your pacing in the second act is rushed." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. He smiled, that beautiful, blinding smile. "I missed your critiques," he said. He walked over to me. He didn't care about the audience. "You were right," I said, tears mixing with the rain on my face. "I was arrogant. I was scared. I thought I was protecting you from a future you wouldn't want." "And now?" he asked, stepping into my space. "Now," I said, grabbing the lapels of his jacket. "I realized that I don't want a future without you in it. Even if I have bad knees, even if people stare. Let them stare," he whispered. He didn't kiss me. Not yet. He dropped to one knee. The whole bookstore gasped. iPhones went up in the air instantly. The flashbulbs started popping. "Ethan," I hissed, "get up. You're making a scene." "I'm making a memory," he said. He pulled a ring box out of his pocket. It wasn't a sleek, modern box. It was vintage velvet. "Jennifer Sterling," he said, his voice ringing out clear and steady. "I have loved you since the third row. I loved you when I was a boy who didn't know anything, and I love you as a man who knows exactly what he wants. Marry me? Let's rewrite the timeline." I looked at him. I looked at the ring. I looked at the faces of the students, the strangers, the judges, and I realized that none of them would be there holding my hand when I was 80, but he would. "Yes," I said. "Yes, you idiot. Yes." He slid the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly. He stood up and kissed me, and the applause was deafening. But honestly, I barely heard it. So, here we are, back at the bakery. The woman behind me is still whispering. "Boy toy. Sugar, mama." I turn around. I flash the ring. It catches the light. "Actually," I say to her, with a smile that is sharp enough to cut glass, "he's my fiancé, and he's a bestseller, and I'm the love of his life. Can you pass the baguette?" She shuts her mouth. Ethan laughs and kisses my temple. "Come on, Professor, let's go home." We walk out into the sunlight. I'm 45. He's 23. The math doesn't make sense to anyone else. But the story? The story is just getting started. Love doesn't check ID. If you believe in following your heart, hit like and subscribe the channel. Share this with someone who needs to be brave.